Hi, this is 365801. Go and get yourself some marshmallows because we're about to get a roasting. Okay, so from the title of the video, you can probably tell what this video is going to be about. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about the worst books that I read in 2021. Now, these are the worst books to me. They might be really great books to you. I doubt that very much because they're trash. But hey, if that's what you like, then that's what you like. I am only joking, but still, there's an element of that. Some of these books are objectively not very good. But this is still a subjective thing, so if you do like these books, fair play to you. But for me, they just weren't particularly enjoyable. In this video, there will be some DNFs, probably some 1 stars and some 2 stars. If something was 3 stars to me, then I think that's perfectly okay. But anything less than 3 stars, it kind of feels like a waste of my time when there's so much good stuff that I could be reading. If it's only a 2 star, then it was kind of a waste of my time. So yeah, DNFs, something that I've mentioned in a previous video, and that is that I very rarely ever DNF, but in 2021 was like the year of the DNF because I just decided that I wasn't gonna. I am an old lady. If you don't know, I am an old lady. And there are only so many days in the year, and there are only so many years left in my life. So why would I waste my time reading something that is a slog to get through and does not bring me joy? It doesn't spark, no sparking of joy. So why would I do it? So yeah, I definitely embraced the DNF a little bit more this year than ever before. And I do think that that's also down to 2 reasons. One, I have been reading a lot more prose, and I have to say that if I don't enjoy a manga in the past, I've been able to just plow on through because it's a lot faster to read a manga than it is to read something in prose, for me anyway. And so you can finish the manga and go, wow, that was trash, yeet. Or when it comes to prose, you're still slogging away like an hour later going, wow, waste of an hour of my life. So yeah, I've definitely DNF'd more prose this year than I have probably manga, but well, we'll talk about it. The other reason I've probably either DNF'd or not enjoyed so many things is because I've actually branched out of my comfort zone of BL and read other genres. And not all of those genres are to my taste, and sometimes not those works in those genres are to my taste. So yeah, there's been a few more that I haven't enjoyed or that I've DNF'd just purely because I've been trying to be more varied in my reading. So in no specific order, let's just get into it. Or, well, roast the things that we need to roast because they were not good. The first one I'm going to talk about is Golden Kain by Yo Asagiri. I ended up giving this 2 stars, and I think I only gave it 2 stars because the art style was kind of nostalgic, and I didn't mind the art style. It was very like old school, but the plot, oh my god, it was crazy. Absolutely insane. It was like plot twist, plot twist, plot twist. Shun trying to live up to his older brother's standards. Kain just, all of the sexual assaults. Very, very full of nonsense. I hated it. It was terrible. So I don't even know why I'm thinking about it now. Why did I give this 2 stars? I guess because it was a wild ride. I do not recommend this to anyone. So yeah, this is definitely going on the oldie, definitely not a goodie pile when it comes to old BL. What were they thinking? This is Green Light by Yura Tamaki, and Tai Shizawa does the illustrations, and Meredith Anderson is the translator. This is the first of, I'm assuming, going to be many yaoi novels that I'll be talking about, because this year I attempted to read some of my yaoi novels. Why did I do that to myself? Why? Anyway, Green Light is a doki doki yaoi novel, so I guess that makes it special, or something. It's about Izumi, who is a pain in the ass. I was gonna say he's a bitter social outcast because that's how he's described, but no, he's a fucking pain in the ass. Oh my god, the most annoying character. Jeez, you have no sympathy for him when he's practically being assaulted by Natsuki, his childhood friend, who also kind of makes it easy for him to be bullied. Like, he's like, okay, because he kind of keeps him in that state. Oh my god, I just complained all the way through this. I originally did like a reading vlog of it, but I don't think I showed you guys because I just complained the whole way through and I thought, I can't show this. I'm just moaning. So I'm moaning now. You don't get it live, but oh my god, it was awful. So yeah, I don't even know why I gave it 2 stars. Probably just for Taishi Zao's artwork, which is always lovely. This is stilted, it's stunted, it's not easy to read, it makes no sense whatsoever, the characters are terrible. It's bad. I can't say anything more. Well, I could, but I'm gonna stop at bad. It's really bad. Now, this next one is probably going to be a fairly obvious choice for anyone who's been following me, especially at the start of the year. And unfortunately, it's a Futekia title, and it's Sneaky Red. This, I think, now has like a 3rd volume out, maybe? Anyway, I I chose poorly and ended up reading Sneaky Red, volumes 1 and 2. Oh, it is violent. The amount of domestic abuse. Ugh, it's terrible. And I don't even think it's like, no, I cannot understand someone who wants to be physically punished to the point where they're black and blue and bruised and beaten and that has any kind of sexual gratification. I don't understand it. And the art style was not to my taste. So yeah, unfortunately, Tanato, is it? Oh, no. Sneaky Red is not something for me. It was very uncomfortable reading and it made me depressed. So I really do not recommend it to anyone. As a BL, it's kind of an interesting one, so as a topic of conversation, it might be something that's worth reading for that purpose, for a discussion, but it was not for pleasure or entertainment. I found it really, really sad, and I wanted to help the main character. So yeah, no, this was a depressing one. Definitely not good. And yet I still gave it 2 stars. So I think that's purely for this is an interesting concept for a BL. And I do appreciate that some BLs have interesting concepts, even if I don't appreciate them for their entertainment purpose. Now this next one is also a Futekia title, which is kind of a surprise, but I really didn't enjoy this one either. This was Dancing Colors by Tasuku Furukawa. The artwork on the front looks gorgeous, but the artwork inside was really not to my taste, and I felt like once again there were themes that I did not enjoy. I don't like it when people are physically attacked violently, any kind of aggression, anything that's a physical act, especially a sexual act that is an attack or abuse. It doesn't make me feel comfortable reading, and I know I can read some, and the way that it's presented within the context, or sometimes I can accept it, but in some cases I cannot. And this one just felt really sad and it felt a bit dirty, and not because of what their job was, because it was interesting and I really liked the way that they presented exotic dancing. It felt beautiful and it felt wild and it felt exotic and it felt like a spectacle. So I felt like that's probably why I gave it the 2 stars, because in that respect it was really interesting, but what happened to some of the characters was not nice, and I felt like that was what took the other stars away from me. I can't take it too often, and so yeah, this was not a good choice for me. Personally, it might be fine for you, but this one for me made me uncomfortable in a way that I felt sad again afterwards. So yeah, Not a good choice for me. Another 2-star read was Part-Time Pets by Reino Amagi. Once again, this was just a very silly one. I didn't hate it, I just didn't really enjoy it. Certainly not enough to give it 3 stars, which is odd because in the same reading vlog I read The President's Time, which is also crazy and a bit stupid, and I ended up giving that one 3 stars. So in my mind I think, that's a terrible, terrible manga, why did you give it 3 stars? But the fact that I gave Part-Time Pets less than that means that it's even worse. I don't hate the art style, it's a little bit flat. The 3D element doesn't really come through. I'm not really a fan of Reino Amagi's art style. I don't think it's accomplished enough. But also her stories are very stupid. They're sort of that sex comedy with a crazy element to it that I really don't understand of early 2000s works in BL. Some of them are just a little bit too mad. And yeah, Tamaki Kirishimima's The President's Time as well was one that you're lucky you got 3 stars, mate. I don't know why I gave you 3 stars. But Part-Time Pets was worse, so there you go. On to the next yaoi novel, Eternal Love. This is by Mizumi Takaoka and Yukariko Jishoji, because I love saying the word Jishoji. This is a June manga yaoi novel, and it's trash. I hated it. It's awful. Never read it. I thought it would be a great, Arabian Nights tale, and it's not. This guy, Tomoyuki, gets kidnapped basically to be a bride of some guy as well at some kingdom of Medina, which doesn't exist. But, honestly, there's been a lot of shenanigans from, people who are in charge of countries in that area, and things that they do to people, like their wives and their daughters, and, people that disappear and, get kidnapped. And it's a little bit too close, it's a little bit on the nose in some respects. Anyway, Tomoyuki is annoying as a character, and I did not root for him. So when someone was going to sell him into slavery, I was like, yeah, on you go, do it. Do you want to murder him? Fine, on you go. Honestly, could not care less about this character. Did not care if the two of them got together. It was a struggle to finish. I hated every second of reading it. It was so bad. The reason I really disliked it was because Tomoyuki had no male agency. He was almost fully and exclusively painted as the damsel in distress character, and I don't like those kind of stories, which is why I steer clear of some Harlequin type female romance or shoujo romance, because the kind of, ditzy, giggly, or I guess the kind of character that is painted in a certain way, a female character with no real agency, no power, and no way of protecting herself or standing up for herself, that kind of character just pisses me off. I hate it because I'm thinking, no woman is actually like that. And Tomoyuki was that female character. The kind of character that doesn't actually exist, but that so many, shoujo writers and other romance writers paint women as. And some women love reading those stories, and I'm totally okay with that. Like, on you go. If that's what you like, if that's your jam, great. But for me, as a woman, I hate to see other women being powerless. And Tomoyuki could have just been a woman at that point, that kind of character. Not an actual woman. I mean, he's the epitome of that character, that female written character of the powerless woman. And, it was just so gross. It was disgusting. I hated it. So yeah, Eternal Love, do not recommend. Now the next one I'm not going to say too much about, except that it's called Logical Orion. It's by Amco. It was on Futekia, and I was really disappointed. The art style is not to my taste, so I did not like or enjoy the art. It was about child prostitutes, I want to say, or a former child model who was a prostitute. He was still really young, so in my eyes, he's still a child. I just really, really did not like it. So content warning, yes, 100%, This was gross. This was gross. I do not suggest you read it. It was weird and it was also uncomfortable. So yeah, this had the ick, 10 out of 10 ick. Not nice at all. So I am going to briefly mention a 3-star read, and I did give it 3 stars because there was aspects of it that I did think that was worth giving it 3 stars, but if I think about actually my enjoyment of it, it was like a 1 or a 2 star. And that's Girlfriend Girlfriend Volume 1 by Hiroyuki. The artwork was quite nice. I liked the 2 female characters, but not everything about them. Their insta-love and their love of this banal male harem character guy, why? There's nothing nice about him. Why would these 2 gorgeous, lovely, fantastic, sweet girls like this guy? And they obviously had like, ooh, is it gonna be threesome? Is this gonna be like something? And they have that kind of hinting in the first volume, and I heard that there's more of that later on. But there wasn't enough of it in this first volume for me to actually like it. And the main male character was such a pain in the ass because he was so nondescript, but he was also like kind of full of himself. And I was like, why do these girls like him? He's got no redeeming features whatsoever. But I can see, a lot of people like Girlfriend Girlfriend, and people talk about it, and I think it's got an anime. And I was like, why? Because this is trash. As far as I'm concerned. I'm not really a fan of harem stories in general, whether it's a man and lots of women around, or a girl or a woman and lots of men around. We're talking about some of these worst ones with a vampire one that was kind of like a otome game, and she was all like, oh, these vampire boys. I hated that too, so I'm not discriminating. I just generally don't like harem type stories. So yeah, Girlfriend Girlfriend, I was like, is there more of the 2 girls together? Because that's what I want to see. And that guy, he can go. Let's just have this as Yuri. That's what I was after. But it didn't happen, so I was disappointed. So the next one I want to talk about is With the Sheik in His Harem, Volume 1 by Rin Miyasa. So you can imagine, I was not really feeling this one. So yeah, it has the whole harem thing, which not great, but it also has the whole sheik thing, which is kind of the whole Arabian Nights that I just spoke about with the Eternal Love one. I love, like Arabian Night stories. I love those, and I've tried a few this year, and I've hated them all. I've hated them all with a passion. With the Sheik in His Harem is awful. It is objectively very, very bad. It has things in it that is quite offensive, but also it's a terrible, terrible manga. People who like shoujo manga that is like this, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice. You're killing your own brain cells, and worse, you're providing this kind of work for young, impressionable girls to read like it's worth reading. Oh, come on, there's so many better things in the world that they could read. I really don't see this as being anything worthy or upholding any kind of standard. One, because the girl is the worst epitome of shoujo heroine. I hated her. I hated her with a passion. The hero is supposed to be some sheik, and of course he buys her. He buys her. Did you get that? He buys her. Ugh. And of course he's not actually, like, oh, of course, we're going to make him foreign, and we're going to call him a sheik, and he's not actually going to be from the Middle East at all. He's going to be blonde hair, blue eye, because that's what's really exotic for Japanese people. I mean, fuck you, Japan. Fuck you. Honestly. Oh my god, I hated it so much. I hated everything about it, because also, you were totally, like, just whitewashing a culture of people, and all the kinds of things that make their culture and their tradition and their people exactly what it should be. And instead, oh no, we're going to just take the names and the idea of a man buying a woman, and oh no, but we're going to make him more pretty with blonde hair and blue eyes because that's what we find attractive in foreign men, because, oh, heaven forbid a foreign man should actually have any colour to his skin. So mad, even thinking about the time I wasted reading this shit. So yeah, I 100% do not recommend With the Sheikh and His Harem. I don't know if there's any more volumes. I don't care to find out. If you liked it, cool. Throw me a wee shade in the comments. I don't care. Fight me. I hated it. It's terrible. Now this next one is actually quite a few, so I'm going to talk about them all together because I read them over quite a long period of time, over a few months, and there's a few DNFs and the rest are like 1 or 2 stars. So I may as well just group them all together and unfortunately tell you they're all by Liam Kingsley. Now, later on in the year, I did a video about reading all of Lynn Van Doren's books, but she was not the first male romance writer that I had started trying to read everything of in 1 year. I had originally started to read everything that Liam Kingsley had written, and that was all of his works, I think from like April or May or something like that. And I just thought, oh, it would be really fun to read everything that he had written. And I started off with all of the Blackwater Pack books. It's a really long series, and I read, I think, everything in that. I think there's like 6 or 7. And then the Timberwood Cove series, and I read everything in that one. And I then like went back and forth. There's like 18 or 13 or something like that. And then I did some of his other books, and I thought, I really enjoyed these 2 series, and they're all very similar. I'm surely going to enjoy some of his other work. And so I also read the Hunter's Haven series and some of the Howling Hills series. And so I did enjoy a lot of his shifter books, and they were quite good. But then I started reading some of his other works, some of his earlier works. So the things he's written recently, I enjoyed. But then I read Omega for Rent, which was about an Omega who was basically an escort and then was asked to be the escort for some rich guy, and they ended up just basically fucking. It felt very much like male porn rather than male romance, and so maybe that's what it was, but I did not enjoy it. But I still gave it 2 stars because the story itself and the competency of the writing was good enough. Because Liam Kingsley is actually a good writer, and the way that the stories are structured, it's okay, it's fairly good. But this one I particularly did not like. I then read a few other of his works that were not to my taste. The first one was his Forever Mate, which was the first one in the Everglow pack, and this is also by someone called like Jenny Tia or something. I think the 2 of them worked together on this series, and I read the first one and I thought, oh well, that was terrible. I hated it, and I did not really enjoy the foreboding element of the story. It sounded pretty bad, and I started reading the second one and I didn't even write it down because I'm like, no, I just DNF'd that instantly straight away. I also read Christmas Heat, Season of Love #1, and it was the most unseasonal thing I have ever read in my life. It was terrible. It was like bombs and violence and like terrorist attacks and all kinds of stuff. It was really, really bad. So yeah, Christmas Heat and the Everglow pack one and Omega for Rent, I all like read them and I gave them 2 stars, and they were not good. And then I gave 2 more of his books a try, and that was Pick of the Litter, and then get this one, Breeding Rights, a Virgin Cinderfella romance. There's nothing romantic about this at all. I hated them and I DNF'd them pretty quick, and these were, I think, my first real DNFs of the year. They were like, no, yeet. And I was really disappointed because I started off so well with his much better series. So I think when he's writing the fluffy, sweet, cute, traditional romance with an element of shifter romance in there as well, he's brilliant. And I think when he was doing his dragon one that he was doing with someone else as well, great. But it really did sour the whole experience because I had planned to read everything by Liam Kingsley and do a video on like, I read everything by Liam Kingsley. And because I DNF'd and I hated some of his books, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that video now. So I spent a long time reading a lot of books that eventually didn't really make any difference. And I didn't tell anyone about them because I think this is like only the first or second time I've mentioned that I read so many Liam Kingsley books this year. And they were all perfectly fine, except for the ones that weren't. And these were the ones that weren't. So yeah, unfortunately, there you go. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Police in a Pod, Volume 1 by Miko Yasu. The art style on this is not to my taste. The sexism in this is not to my taste. I'm pretty sure that this is going in a direction that might be really interesting, but I just didn't like the first volume enough to actually want to find out if it continues in the same vein. I felt like the casual sexism was either commentary on the sexism within Japan and women have to experience in the workplace, or it's just actually sexism in Japan and they're just putting it out there like, hey, and it wasn't clear enough which one it was, which made me go, yikes, not nice. So yeah, Police in a Pod, not for me, and not enjoyable. Now, one of the worst things I have read all year, probably the worst, maybe the worst? We'll see, I'll have to decide by the end of this video. Assholes by Bram Algoed. This is a graphic novel about two privileged old men who play golf, and they're just dicks. They're absolutely fucking awful people, and they are the worst. Like the worst. Oh, awful people, like full of sexism and misogyny and racism and just disgusting vile behaviour. Oh, they're just awful men, so self-centered, stuck up. Oh, the worst. And I'm like, why would anyone think that this is something that we need to read in 2021? Like, who gives a fuck about two old men and what they think and do? Like, no one needs to see that. We are already like over it. So yeah, I did not need to read that, and I should have trusted all of the reviews that I read before I started reading it. I was like, surely it can't be that bad. No, it's the worst. Don't pick it up. I'm sorry to the author. Sorry you had this idea that you thought was good, because then you inflicted it on everyone else and it actually got published. I mean, for God's sake. Awful. Think of all the other people in the world who could have got a book published and they decide to put that out. Ugh, the worst. The worst. Now, another manga that I got from NetGalleys that I did not particularly enjoy was Undead Girl Murder Farce Volume 1 by Yugo Aosaki. I think this might have been okay. It was only a 2-star for me, but the art style was not good. The story was not good. It felt rushed, and there was a lot going on without anything actually going on. So I don't think it was very well structured. I kind of was like, oh, okay. So they told us who the guy was at the end of the first volume, who did whatever it was, but they didn't tell us why he did it. So the mystery wasn't who did it. It was what exactly was his reasoning behind it. But hey, I'm not going to spoil it for you, so if you do like murder mystery stuff, I love murder mystery stuff, but I didn't find it very entertaining, but you might. So yeah, here's a book that you might like, but I did not. Undead Girl Murder Farce. Now, at some point during June, I did try to read more yaoi novels. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, you didn't learn your lesson yet? No, I did not. And the reason being is, it was the buzzword, and it was like titles and names, and I thought, great, I've got a couple of yaoi novels that will fit that. I will try and read them during June. And one was The Aristocrat and Desert Prince by Haruhi Tono, illustrations by Ai Hasakawa, and translation by Karen McGillicuddy. and the other one was The Selfish Demon King by Kyoko Wakatsuki, and of course my favourite, not, Naruki Kojima. I have already read The Selfish Demon King. I read it a long time ago, so I know what the story's kind of about-ish. Would you believe me if I said it's about a selfish demon king? It's also about a boy who's like finds out he's actually part like succubus or incubus. He's one of them, a buses, and then the demon king, who is a little bit wagamama, decides that he needs to have him as his like concubine, and takes him off to the demon realm. And there's kind of like a little like skirmish of some kind. That's all I can remember from the first time I read it, because I did not finish this. This was DNF again, because I was so bored with it, and I was like, ugh. And then the illustrations are by Naruki Kojima, and I'm like, ugh. And I was too busy doing other things and getting distracted by a lot of other better things to read during that time. So I was like fine with not reading it. I was having a great time actually. I was visiting family and stuff. So I thought I'll give the other one a go, because I love Arabian Nights, right? Yeah, like I hadn't learned my lesson earlier in the year yet. Still, Aristocrat and the Desert Prince by Haruhi Tono. This was also pretty stilted. The writing was not good. And honestly, when I started reading it, it felt like I was still reading Eternal Love, and I hated every second, and I really didn't want to read it, and I was really like, I hate this main character too. Even his name is really similar. It's like, it's not Takeyuki, is it? Is it Takeyuki? And the other one was Tomoyuki? I think that's what it is. I think one's Takeyuki, something like that. Oh my god, I was like, this is the same book. This is the same book. They've just changed the cover. What? It was awful. It was so bad. And even worse because the main character is like a spoilt rich kid. Ugh, a yeet across the room with this one. A plague upon your house. Haruhi Tono, a plague. I really did not enjoy myself, so I DNF'd that too. And I took it on holiday with me because we were finally opening up. I was going to see my sister in a long time. It was going to be great. I did not read any of it. I was like, nah. I would rather read I actually spent money on Kindle books. I was like, no, I would rather spend my money than read this actual physical book that's on my TBR in front of me. I was just not for having it. So yeah, it was another not very good yaoi novel for me. Now I have to say that during the summer months I had a really good reading time, except for those two yaoi novels that I started and did not finish, and don't really have much high hopes of ever getting back to anytime soon. I did have one read that I was very disappointed about. I don't really like talking about some male authors that I did not enjoy, but especially if I got it for free through NetGalley. But this was one that I really didn't enjoy, and that was Homefront by Jackson Altieri. I don't think this is his first book, but it kind of made me think maybe it was when I was reading it, and then maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Anyway, it does not have a high rating on Goodreads, and but it's got a higher rating than I gave it. So there you go. It's about a guy who comes back to the United States after being discharged. He's got PTSD, and it's a story about a letter that his brother wrote to his friend, or his friend's brother wrote to his friend and he wants to return this letter to him, and they're both gay, so obviously they're gonna fall in love. But it's much more about the PTSD than it is about the romance, or about, and they both seem to have grief and bereavement issues that they need to deal with, as well as the PTSD. And I remember all of it, so at least it was memorable. But it was memorable for a lot of things that I didn't like, and that was mainly because it was about the telling and not the showing. There was a lot of writing that didn't need to be there. It felt like it needed an editor and someone to really help guide Jackson to make this a much more competently written and tighter, more concise, or more flowery, or more emotive in different places. So the general premise was good. I really liked that idea. I've read that exact story practically in a lot of the Liam Kingsley books that I had read early in the year. So I was like, I know this story. I've read this story. I've read this story a couple of times. Liam Kingsley's written it a couple of times. So I knew a good way to write this story, and this was not it. So yeah, this was really disappointing, and it was such a slog to finish. So I started it, I think it was June or July, and I didn't finish it until August. And it was not a long book, it was just bad. It was really disappointing, and I felt like I had to finish it so that I could write an okay review. But actually I wish I'd just been like, nah, sack it, I ain't reading this no more, it's that bad. So yeah, I will not look for a Jackson Altieri book now, which is unfortunate, and that's something that I can live with. Now, for the rest of the year, I was having a pretty good time up until I tried to read another yaoi novel, and then it all went to shit again. This is another 1-star book, so this is like competing for the worst book that I have read this year, and that is Dark Walker by Hikaru Yura. And I really did not like this. I struggled through this. It was part of a vlog, so I'll maybe put a link to it. The only good thing it had about it was Hirotaka Kitaragi's artwork, and that's why it got 1 star. But I don't know, I really have this thing with these yaoi novels because I really enjoyed reading them like a decade or so ago whenever they came out, and I really do not like them now. I really do not like the way that the writing is so stilted and so unimaginative and so unnatural. It's not the way that a novel should be read in English. It doesn't feel like if a native English speaker was to pick up and go, okay, this is a book, like they would not recognize it as a proper English book. The translation work is just not great, and I don't know if it's because the Japanese books are so bad, or if the translator was not doing a great job, and hey, that could be the case, or, and I suspect this most, that the production of the book by the company meant that either the translator didn't have enough time or wasn't paid very much, or the editing process wasn't supervised, and therefore we just got what we got. And I would say that that's more than likely the case. But that is no excuse for such awful, awful stories. This was a story about dreams, and Yugo and Naruse, and it was weird, and it made no sense, and it was kind of like based on a Hirotaka Kisaragi like story that was originally a manga, and then I think Hikaru Yura had taken it and made it a novel about it. Anyway, it made no sense. This was about dreams, and it was depressing as hell. I'm going to be honest, it was really sad, in a sort of like, why am I still reading this kind of way. So yeah, I do not recommend Dark Walker. What a waste of time. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And the thing was, the first like couple pages had so much promise, because it was like a wet dream sequence, and I was like, oh, where's this gonna go, huh? And it did not seem to go anywhere. It was like the most exciting bit was over and done with. Really bad. So what a slog it was for me to get through. I have to say, in that same vlog, I think I read a lot of really bad stuff. So it was I think it was the worst vlog I did in terms of ratings. I read one by Sawako that was like a single volume Futekia title. Awful. Just terrible. And then Dark Walker, obviously. And then The Spiral of Sand by Yuna Aoi. That was terrible. I think I gave it 2 stars, but really it should be a 1 star. It's bad. It's so bad. I laughed a bit at it, I have to admit, but such a terrible story and full of sexual assault. And you're wondering why. It was needlessly dramatic. And then Rose of the Rhine by Megumi Minami. The beautiful artwork on the cover, it definitely deserves 2 stars just for the artwork on the cover. But I think it should also remove a star because you are lulled into the false sense that this is going to be a beautiful, story. And it's terrible. The artwork inside is really pants. And the story itself is terrible as well. So yeah, Rose of the Rhine and Spiral of Sand, kind of competing for the worst manga, BL manga that I read this year. Definitely up there. I still don't know what's the worst book. I'm gonna have to see. But these two were pretty bad. That whole vlog full of really bad books. Now I feel like I need to also talk about Rising Storm and Missing Road. So Rising Storm is by Yuzuha Ogi and Missing Road is by Shu Sakurai. Now, Missing Road I think is probably the worst manga I've read this year. BL manga, I should say. Rising Storm was pretty bad. It was kind of like the art style I would expect. It was very old. It wasn't enjoyable. I did not like it. But Missing Road was just on a whole other plane, a whole other level of nonsense. And it's such a shame because I thought I liked Shu Sakurai, but maybe I don't. And that was a revelation that I didn't need to have. It was supposed to be like a sci-fi adventure, and it made no sense whatsoever, and it was just full of sexual assault and then weird feelings. It was like a Gundam in space, but for sexual assault. It made no sense. I did not enjoy it. It was really bad. And even now, if you ask me to explain what happened, I would say it was a series of fever dream vignettes, because there's no way that any of it made sense or was cohesive or had a plot. It was like all these little weird, like someone was on acid or something. I don't know, because I've never been on acid, but I'm assuming, is it shrooms? Or I don't know, on drugs in some form to have some sort of weird, this is a story. When someone has a dream and they wake up and they start telling you about their dream and you're just like, dude, 1, that's weird as shit, and 2, you're making no sense, 3, I'm not interested, this is boring. Where's the plot? So yeah, it was like reading someone's fever dream. Missing Road was awful. As a BL manga, I think it's the worst. Okay, so I did start Earthian Volume 1. This is by Yun Koga, who is the same person who did Loveless. Now, I did kind of enjoy the first sort of omnibus version of Loveless last December, so I was kind of thinking Earthian should be quite good. It is very different. And it is not what I expected, and also very slow paced, and it was a real struggle and a slog just to get to, halfway through Earthian Volume 1, and there's 4 volumes, they're chunky beasts, so I was like, nope, not gonna happen. There are far too many things on my TBR that I want to read, that I'm gonna enjoy reading, and I did not get very far in this, so that's gonna go back on my TBR. So I would say it's a DNF, but it's a DNF for now. But it's not an enjoyable DNF, because now I know that it's not a very exciting book, or at least not for the first half of the first volume. So yeah, it's you're gonna have to read this later on because you own it now. So read it, and then if you want, get rid of it. So yeah, Earthian, not a great choice for me. Now this book actually kind of pissed me off. It's called Coming Up for Air, by Amanda Mewison. I'm not really Mewison. It's a mermaid mafia story. I'm not really a fan of mafia stories, and there's more mafia than mermaid in there. So it was Shay who had said, oh, I might read this for, like, I think it was the October TBR that she was making, and she described it, and I was like, that sounds great, I'll give it a go. Even though she was like, I don't think this sounds great, so I'm not gonna give it a go. And she was right, it's not good. Coming up for air was terrible, so I got quite a substantial way through it. I think I was like, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through when I was just like, no, DNF and yeet this, because I don't think I'm ever going to come back to it. It's just like, let it go, because I do not want to, and I don't care about the characters at all. Not one for me. So yeah, it was good to know that there are some male romance out there that I do not enjoy, and I will not enjoy, and I will not go back to. Now, for a video, I did start listening to the audiobook of Hell and High Water Thirds. This is by Charlie Cochet, and I heard this is a really good one for male romance. It's like an old school, like everyone knows it, they've read it, and so it's still on my TBR. So it's a DNF, but a DNF for now. So I will get back to it. I would prefer to read it either in its graphic novel form or in an actual like ebook rather than the audio. I didn't really take to the audio book as much as I thought I was going to. So yeah, that's a revisit this story in the future. Now, the only thing I had to read in the month of November was Lost Boys by Kaname Itsuki, and that was a 2-star read. It was pants. It was really bad. I did not like the Shota-esque element of this. Nope, not for me. Nope, no siree. Not one that I would recommend. Don't do it, guys. Just don't. Just say no. Just say no. Now here we have another yaoi novel that I have started and I will read. So this is going in the DNF for now pile. That's The Lonely Egotist. It's one that I only just recently started, but I could even tell that I was lagging and it was not interesting and entertaining enough for me when I've got like 6 other things on my TBR or in the vicinity that I would much prefer to read. And it really hurts me because this was expensive. This was one of the most expensive things I've ever bought for my collection, and I still maintain I got a really good bargain because it's so expensive to buy, and I'm not enjoying it. So I kind of have this vague memory of this story though being good, so maybe I just need to get through it, or maybe once again I will be proven that my memory of past reads is not accurate and actually all yaoi novels are trash. I hope that's not the case, but I'm guessing that's probably the case. Now, one you might imagine is a 2-star, and I'm looking at my ratings just now wondering why on earth it's not 2-star or at least 1-star. And I gave it a 3-star, and that's The Omega Call. And I think I gave it a 3-star originally when I first read it because I was engrossed enough in the story, but also I was really not enjoying it, so I'm wondering why I gave it 3 stars. Maybe the art style was okay. The art style was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. But that's not what I enjoyed at all either by Kobuchi. So The Omega Call, I gave it 3 stars, and average rating is 2.5, so I'm guessing that if I give it 2, it'll probably still be like 2.5. No, it'll be less because there's only 2 ratings. My rating is giving it 2.5. I'm gonna have to amend that. So yeah, The Omega Call by Kobuchi. That's a pretty poor one. I'm gonna reduce it down to 2 stars. It's not a good one. Do not read it. Don't put yourself through it. So yeah, that's probably a bad one as well for this year. Okay, so I think the last things that I've read in 2021 that I do not really recommend are from my Futekyo Omegaverse vlog, and that is anything written by Shibito Koiwazurai, because nope. They were depressing Omegaverse stories, they were not enjoyable, they had all of the tropes that I don't really like and none of the good stuff that I do like in an Omegaverse story. And yet both of those ones were 2-star reads for me. I did not enjoy them. The art style is also not really to my taste, but also there's just a general sense of foreboding. And I don't know what it is. Like, if anything has even the hint of foreboding or the possibility of sexual assault, you know, that sense of creepiness, it just heightens my anxiety. And I have enough issues with my anxiety as it is. So you might think, why on earth did you bother doing an Omegaverse read through then? And I'm like, why? Why did I do that? They're all read now though, so you know, now I know. And if you know, you know. So now I do. So yeah, Shibito Koiwazurai is probably not a mangaka that I'm going to go out of my way to find anything else from and read from again. So I at least have that knowledge that I can go forward with and say no to that. So during the month of March, I did try to read a couple of things that I have been planning on reading, and I want to read, and yet it just didn't feel right at the time. I got almost to the end of volume 1 of Awkward Silence. I was going to do a whole read of the series, and then I got distracted. I was also going to read the whole volume of Little Butterfly, the omnibus, for the Tome Topple, and I did not. I once again picked it up and kind of just was like, right, okay, and I think I only got like 2 or 3 pages in. I don't think I got very far into it, and I just put it down and did not read it. Every time I kept looking at it going, you need to read that. And this is not the first time that I've chosen to do it during a Tome Topple week and just not actually done it. So yeah, once again, I have not managed to read Little Butterfly, even though I've given myself a whole year to do it. Now, I don't consider these as DNFs forever. I would consider these as DNFs for now. They will get read at some point. They will just continue to get put back on the TBR, and I will eventually get round to reading them. But they're DNF for now. And they're not the worst books I've read this year, because I just didn't actually read them. And there wasn't a reason why I didn't like them. I just didn't actually want to read them at that time. So yeah, when I say the worst books of the year, these aren't the worst books because I didn't actually read them. And there's no reason for me not to read them except for the mood that I was in at the time. So yeah, don't come for me. Don't come for me. I just wasn't feeling it, okay? And I will read them. I will. I promise. So, in front of you, you can see a big pile of steaming crap. Books that I think are the worst books of 2021. Mine, I have to say, the caveat is Little Butterfly and Awkward Silence. They were DNFs just because I wasn't in the right frame of mind. But the rest are pretty much like, no, I did not enjoy this. This is not good. And of course, these are just the physical titles. And a lot of digital titles were DNFs as well, or were not particularly enjoyable for me. And there's quite a few, actually. I should probably total it up and see how many books I would give that I've read so far that I did not really enjoy. And the DNFs I don't count for my total for the year. So the ones that I attempted, it's kind of, that's why I feel like it's a waste of my time, because I'm trying to get 365. And because I've upped my prose intake this year, it's harder to get because I've been reading so many books rather than manga, because it's a lot faster and easier to read volumes of manga than it is to read a book with prose. So trying to get 365. So every time you read something and it's not to your taste and you have to DNF it, you kind of feel like you've wasted your time. And so a lot of the DNFs feel like wasted time. Whereas at least some of these books do count towards my total for the year. So at least they have something positive to say about themselves. Like, hey, we're in your list. But even though they were terrible books. I don't know which is the worst one. Probably Missing Road for the BL manga. That's purely because there's no plot, it doesn't make sense, it's crazy, it's absolutely insane. I don't understand what's going on. When it comes to overall for the whole year, I would say that Assholes, the graphic novel, because I'm wondering, why does that even exist in 2021? Why is that being published in 2021? It's got no place in the world. Like, there's no reason for that to be published. Whereas a lot of the books that I did not enjoy, they are all old books that are like 10 years old, and that's through translation as well. So if you think about the original Japanese, are even older. So of course they're going to be dated, and of course there's going to be stuff in it that you think, God, why on earth is this in here? There's like, makes no sense, or this is so old fashioned, or, you know, ugh, this language, no one would use it these days. So there's a lot of that kind of thing in these old Jun manga titles, and I don't particularly enjoy that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to go through my back catalogue and all of my collection, as I've collected so many old titles and out of print titles, and they're not all going to be good, and I knew that, but it's kind of a struggle to read through some of these and go, how much were you were kind of pricey, you were definitely not worth it. So I don't really want to go through so much of my catalogue and go like, ugh, this is not good. But that's kind of the nature of the beast, as it were. So yeah, this year there has been quite a few. I will total it up and put it on the screen. How many books were like 3-star, not 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, or DNF, and the total altogether. And so it's probably not that bad, considering I'm aiming for 365 books. And I have to say, I have had some amazing 5-star reads this year, and loads of 5-star reads. And I've had a really fantastic like last quarter of the year. I've read so many great things, and so many things that I've enjoyed a lot. And even the things that I haven't enjoyed, they've been amusing in some respects, because it's like, what on earth is this? So yeah, an interesting little one. I hope you enjoyed this roast of the things that I did not enjoy in 2021 for my reading. I'd love to know what's the worst thing you read this year, and I'd especially like to know what the best thing is you read this year. So if you want to let me know what's the worst or what's the best, you can let me know in the comments down below. Or if you just want to let me know that you watched this, you can put a little fire emoji down in the comments, so I'm like, yeah, we roasted these together. So yeah, I'm 365-801, and I make videos about male romance, yaoi, BL manga, and all that good stuff. Thanks for coming with me today on my long roast through 2021. Yep, having a look at the worst books that I read. If you stuck around to the end, thanks a lot. You can give this video a thumbs up or subscribe if you like. And take care, everyone. I will see you in the next video. Bye!